this influence of what has happened yesterday in Switzerland, for instance, does this have an influence on us? And is it possible to have a European Union in bits and pieces? Now, I am very happy that David underlined very strongly, and I agree with him, that it is so important that we are a union of people. We are not only a market. The market is important for people to live, for people to have jobs, and we have to develop this market and we have to make it stronger. But in the end, it is for the people to live well. And so you cannot separate market here and only market and then something else in the distant future. No. And that is why the basis of the European Union are the 4 freedoms. You quoted them. The freedom of movement for capital, I think this city is interested. The freedom of movement for goods, for services, we have a lot of work to do on the services, and the freedom of movement for citizens who are all respected to be the same in their diversity. I am not a Brit, I will never become a Brit, and you probably will never become a Luxembourg in the way of thinking, because I have my roots, you have your roots. And you should respect my roots, I will respect your roots. And the two, we can live together very well. And I really wonder why you do not exercise this tradition of debate also concerning European affairs. Because you are at the verge of having maybe, I don't know, but that is a national decision, to take very important decisions about what? Do the people who are asked to vote know what they are going to vote about? I don't care what kind of personal decision you take. The only thing I care for is that you take an informed decision, whatever your decision be. And that is exactly the reason why last year I launched the European Year of Citizens, because I saw that there was this deficit, this hunger sometimes of knowing more, of going to a trusted source. Because the problem which we face in Europe with the immigration, with the migration of European citizens, is a minority problem. The majority of the people come to work, they contribute, they are net contributors. You have a small minority of people, which creates real difficulties. And very often they are all sitting one on the other on one spot. And then you have mayors of some cities who say, now how can I handle this? The stress on my education, on the schools, the stress on housing, the stress on work, the stress on health. And it is a very big stress. And that's why tomorrow I'm sitting together with these mayors, telling them what are the rules under which they can operate, telling them also what is the help the European Union provides, because the money which can go to these villages, to those cities, in order to invest into houses, in order to help education system is subsequent, is a lot of money. But the mayors have to know that they can get.
Welcome, Viviane, and you know, from all the millions of victims out there, a big thank you. I know everybody talks about the mobile phone, but for victims and their families, that is really near to my heart, as you know. Just a quick summary. My son became a victim of very serious crime abroad in 2008. He had a budding career that was cut short by a vicious attack. I did find a big struggle going to my own country to get help, support and advice. It just wasn't available. I then turned my energy, my strength and my stress to go into the commissioners, and especially Viviane. And eventually we did get the new EU Victims Law. I do feel a little bit let down as a victim's mum that our own country at the moment hasn't really pushed hard enough to support us. Because when we go out of this country, we are still British and we're still Europeans. But the trouble is, if you're in a situation like my family was, you become non-British because there's nowhere to turn. And as I said, we turned to Europe to get our help. And, you know, we should be looking to the fact that, as far as I'm concerned as a victim's mum, why couldn't I have got that same help from my own UK government?
It was one of the most moving moments when I met this woman. I was at that moment working on the rights of the accused in front of courts, so that when a British citizen travels abroad, lives abroad, that has the same right as all other citizens in front of the court in another member state. And you know there are 2.2 million Brits who are in that case, because you are the biggest exporter of people in the whole European Union. So I was working on the rights of the accused. And while I was doing that, and I'm not a lawyer nor a judge as by profession, I saw that, well, the one against whom the crime has been committed, the victim, is in our systems nowhere. And I thought that was not very fair. And then Maggie came and told me the story of her son, who had been badly beaten in a southern country and no way to help and so on and so forth. And Maggie was a trigger for me to make the same thing I did for the people who are accused, to make that same thing for the victim.